Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Evans Garage. Today I'm going to be showing you how to fix a leak on my injection pump on Old Blue. So I've got a leak, I'll show you in a sec. It's coming from the throttle shaft itself on the VE injection pump on my truck. And in order to fix this leak, I'll need to replace the O-ring, and then while I'm in there, it's a good idea to replace the bushing that the throttle shaft goes through. And then while I'm in there and I have the pump top off, I'm going to be replacing the governor spring with a 3200 RPM governor spring, in which the stock one is a 2800 RPM governor spring. It's only $30, so I might as well do that while I'm in there. Here's the respective part numbers for the bushing, the O-ring, and the spring, and the prices that I got them for at my local dealer. Just to note, you don't have to remove the injection pump entirely from the truck to do this seal job. You just have to remove the top of the pump. It's the same procedure if you've done your governor spring. Pull the top of the pump off and replace the O-ring and the bushing, and then put it back in there. One thing that you will need for this job is a nice set of long ball end Allen wrenches, specifically for the one Allen screw that's at the back of the injection pump. You won't be able to reach it with a regular Allen wrench because it's really deep in there, and it's also kind of a weird angle, so you need that ball end to be able to get into that tight spot. So if you have a nice set that are long and have ball ends on them, you shouldn't have any problems getting all the screws off. All right, so first take a 5mm Allen wrench and take off the throttle position sensor. Now we'll replace these 3 screws for now until we get the top of the pump off. Now take an 8mm Allen wrench and loosen the bolt on the top of the throttle shaft. There's this part of the bolt, and then on the bottom there's a bushing, just right there, and just put that out of the way. And then there's a small washer on top of the throttle itself there, just a small one, don't lose that. Okay, now it's important to note where your throttle is indexed. This truck looks like it's indexed, so there's indexing lines on the left and the right of this shaft that has a slot in it. The slot on the left hand side is aligned 2.5 ticks down from the top, and the one on the right is about 4 to 4.5 ticks down from the top. Now we can pull the throttle off itself. It looks like there's 2 plastic bushings and a spring. Now take a 12mm wrench and loosen your AFC reference line. There's a plastic bushing on each side of that banjo bolt, and you can just push it out of the way there. So one of the washers stuck to the pump top. I'm just going to leave it. Now take an 18mm wrench and loosen I think that's the fuel return line on the injection pump. I've already loosened it, and then just taking that out. It's a banjo bolt with 2 washers on each side. All right, the fuel return line is off and pushed out of the way now. Okay, the next step is there are 4 5mm Allen screws to take off. 1, 2, the third one's behind the throttle stop here. 3, and then the 4th one, my wrench is already on down there. It's way behind the pump. So note I didn't have to remove the throttle stop to get that 3rd bolt, and then we'll try and get the 4th one here at the back. I'm just gonna try and knock the pump loose here a bit. There we go. So all 4 screws are off now. Okay, now that the pump top is loose, what you have to do is push down on the throttle shaft. If it doesn't move with your finger, just hit it with a wrench or something, and it shouldn't take much force to get out. And then from the bottom, pull it through, and then you can take the whole pump top assembly off. Okay, so the leaky culprit here, I don't know if you can see it, is this O-ring right here. So we're gonna pull this off of the spring just with your hand. I'll leave the spring on the pump. We'll take this into the shed along with our pump top, and I'll show you the bushing here. This is the bushing, and the throttle shaft goes in this bushing, so we're gonna replace that. All right, and while we've got the pump top off, I'm going to be replacing the factory governor spring right here. So I'll just show you how to do that. Come on, focus. There we go. So we'll take our factory spring off. I just gotta hold my finger where the spring is there. And then we'll take our new one, pop it on. And then there we go. So the new one is a 366 spring. The factory one, if we can still read it, says 386. Or is that an 8? 388. All right, so now I'll take my throttle shaft here and replace it with the new O-ring. So I've got my new O-ring here. I'll put some oil on that, take this old crusty one off, and replace it. Here's the old one. There we go. Got the new O-ring on. All right, I put a bit of oil on the new bushing, and I'm gonna test out the O-ring on the new bushing, make sure it seals well. That feels like it has a pretty good seal in there. All right, so to get the bushing out, I've got it in my bench vise here. That top part of the copper bushing I'm pushing on, and then I've got the the bottom part of the pump top on the other side of the vise jaws, and I'm just pushing in this until I get to roughly that surface, and then I'll put a socket on it that matches the same size. In this case, 11/32 socket I'm going to use on the top of that bushing to push it all the way through the pump top. So I've already broken it loose. Be careful, the pump top is aluminum, so you do risk damaging it by taking out the bushing if it's really stubborn. Mine was a bit stubborn, but I slowly applied force on it and then it broke free. So now I'm gonna take it out the rest of the way here. So it's slowly going in. Okay. Now I'm going to back it out and throw that socket on. Here's from the bottom side real quick. Alright, and it looks like I'll need a socket on the other side. Alright, so in order to get this bushing out, I just got it the rest of the way. I didn't capture it on camera though. I put a socket on this side to allow it to go in to the end of the socket, and then I pressed it in just a bit further, and then it fell right out. So there's the old copper bushing, and then we'll get in the new bushing here. So before going any further, I've taken my new bushing here, put some lubricant on the outside, and then I put a bit of lubricant on the inside of the bearing race, I guess you could call it, and I'm just going to press it back in the same way from the back, and then once I get up to this edge, I'll use a socket to make sure I can seat it all the way. Okay, before I put the bushing in here, you can see there's several different levels on it. The skinnier, smaller part is going to be inserted from the bottom of the pump straight up, so like this. I'll take my pump and then I'm going to put it in to the hole this way, and then it's going to seat on this furthest up groove from the bottom. So I'll push it in until it's fully seated on that this groove. And now I'll start to press it in here. I don't know how much you're gonna be able to see. So it's starting to go in and actually sitting pretty nicely. And then I'll go until it hits the other side of the vise, so about there. And then I'll have to take it out and put a socket on that side. Alright, I got a 3/4 inch socket on there. And I'll keep pressing it. Alright, and it's almost seated. And right there, I've got it fully seated. And just like that, the bushing is fully seated there. And then this is from the other side. Alright, so I've lubricated my new throttle shaft with a new O-ring, and I'm going to go install it on the pump. And then I'll show you a couple things with the pump top before we reinstall it. Okay, so before I go and reinstall the pump top back on the injection pump, one of the things that I need to do is back out the full fuel screw. So the fuel screw from the outside of the pump, when you're looking at it from the engine, it's kind of like that, is back here under a cover if it hasn't been tampered with. This one has not been tampered with. So the reason you're going to want to do this is because when you reinstall the pump, it's pretty common to break or get caught on the fulcrum lever and break it, and then you'll ruin your injection pump. So you got to be very careful when reinstalling the pump top as to not break your fulcrum lever. One of the precautions you can do is back out your fuel screw so that this fuel screw doesn't get caught on the fulcrum lever and break it. So if you have a pump that has not been tampered with, I'll show you. You pop this cover off the fuel screw, and then there's a small welded collar that will need taken off. So I'll take that off, mark the screw, back it out so it's flush with the inside of the pump, and then I'll be able to reinstall the pump top and then back in my fuel screw to where it was. So you actually do not need to take that welded tamper-proof metal off of there, and that'll help you prevent risking runaway when you reinstall this. I'm going to leave this as is for now until I decide to add some more power to this truck, but all I had to do was break the lock nut loose, and then I'll take a flathead screwdriver and back out the max fuel screw until it's flush with the inside of the pump, just like this. And then once it's back on there, all I have to do is go back it all the way down until I hit that collar, and then I won't risk a runaway situation. Alright, I'm going to put my throttle shaft on the new spring, like that. Now keep in mind, you want to visualize once the pump top is on, that the throttle will turn counterclockwise like this. You don't want it to be installed like that. You want it to be like this. Okay, now we'll go ahead and get the pump top seated with the new spring. First thing we'll do is put the throttle shaft through the bushing. Before you put the pump top on, just clean up the mating surface for the gasket. Now is also a good time to replace the gasket, but I opted not to. So we'll go ahead and throw the pump top on now. First thing we're going to do is push through the throttle shaft into our new bushing. And keep in mind when you put it on what I said about the counterclockwise rotation. Alright, I'm going to twist my throttle shaft counterclockwise and make sure it's good. And then I'll get my back bolt seated. Alright, I've got that back bolt seated finally. You're going to have to start at that back corner and kind of feel where that fulcrum lever is. Get on the right hand side of it when you're looking at it this way, and then push it in, seat the back corner, get the bolt started, and then we'll get our other one started now. And snug all these down. There's no specific torque spec that I'm going to give you. This is how I'm going to torque this back one down, just with a pair of pliers. That's probably good. One more for the queen. we go. Alright, so we'll put back on our fuel banjo and the AFC reference banjo lines. Alright, I'm gonna put back in my max fuel screw. So I've got a flathead screwdriver down in here on the right. I'm gonna turn that in until it hits the collar all the way. Alright, I think it's in most of the way. Put your plastic piece here, and then the spring goes on this metal tab here. And then it's your upper plastic bushing. Just like that. And then in order to get that spring, you have to preload the spring. I'm gonna take a pick and bring it around while I put the throttle shaft on. It's important to index your throttle correctly as well. I'll try and get the spring on first. It just goes behind this. If you're having a hard time, also pull up on the shaft. It might give you a bit more room. So there we go, got the spring on, and then pull up on that shaft and index it. Try to index it correctly the first time. I think it's about there. Next, take your small washer, put that back on, and don't forget your big bushing that goes in the back of this. Put it over your throttle, index it between these two parts of the spring. It's very important when you put your bolt on that this is pulled up and doesn't twist before you tighten it down. I can keep an eye on the center of that shaft to make sure it doesn't turn while I'm tightening this down. Alright, take a 17mm wrench, and I already started the fuel return line with both copper washers, and tighten that guy up. Don't over tighten it. It's a banjo bolt and it can break. Now put back on your AFC reference line. Don't forget there's a plastic washer on each side. And again, don't over tighten this. Okay, now torque down your throttle shaft bolt. Okay, and now I'm just gonna make sure the throttle travels fully and normally. There we go. Now I can put back on the throttle position sensor. This bolt here for the throttle position sensor has to align and index in there. So make sure that's seated before you tighten that down. Alright, it's aligned. Now we can put those 3 bolts back on. Okay, now it's important before you go to start your truck, take off the intake take off the intake plenum here, and when you go to start the truck, just in case there's a runaway scenario, have a flat board like this ready so you can cut off the airflow right in front of the turbo so the truck doesn't run away. Alright, so I'll go and fire up the truck and see how it goes. Forgot to plug back in the fuel shutoff solenoid, so let's try that again. Alright, so that was a success there. So turns out I don't have to adjust my throttle, which is nice. So I'll put back the intake and we can wrap up that job. Alright guys, so that's how you change out your injection pump seal on the throttle shaft if you have one that's leaking. So hopefully this video helped you out. It's also the same exact video if you'd be changing out your governor spring, so you can use this for your governor spring changing as well. A couple projects that I've got coming up. I'm going to be putting a CB radio into Old Blue. Very similar setup to what I have in the red truck. I just didn't take a video when I installed it in the red truck. So that's what I'm going to be doing with this CB radio that I got there for Christmas. It's going to be the exact same setup. The other thing that I'm going to be doing here shortly is military style battery terminals, which I've also done on the red truck. Again, I just didn't video it, and I also have a nicer setup in the red truck where I have an auxiliary fuse block that has a bank of 6 constant powered circuits as well as 6 switched power circuits. So eventually I'm going to be doing this on the blue truck as well, and I'll videotape the whole process so that way you see from start to finish how I implemented my auxiliary fuse block that has both switched power sources and constant power sources, which is really handy when you have a lot of accessories like dash cams, GPS, a USB, etc. So it's good to have those extra circuits there, so that way you're not using those silly splices that you can get at crappy tire and stuff like that. So anyways, hopefully that helped there, guys. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.